Imagine living in a place where you're treated like property, forced to work from sunrise to sunset, with no hope of escape. That was life for the Israelites in Egypt, enslaved for generations. But God had a plan to rescue his people and lead them to freedom, using one man to deliver them: Moses. Let's journey back to ancient Egypt and see how God's power turned an impossible situation into a story of hope and liberation. Our story begins during a dark time. The Pharaoh of Egypt, fearing the growing number of Israelites, ordered all newborn Hebrew boys to be thrown into the Nile River. But one brave mother refused to give up her baby. She placed him in a basket and set him afloat on the river, trusting God to protect him. And God did. Pharaoh's own daughter found the baby, named him Moses, and raised him in the palace as her own. As Moses grew older, he discovered the truth about his people's suffering. One day he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, and in a moment of anger, struck the Egyptian, killing him. Fearing for his life, Moses fled Egypt and became a shepherd in the land of Midian. He thought he had left his old life behind, but God wasn't done with him yet. One day, while tending sheep, Moses saw something extraordinary, a bush that was on fire but didn't burn up. Curious, he approached, and then he heard a voice. "Moses, Moses." It was God calling Moses to return to Egypt and lead the Israelites out of slavery. At first, Moses hesitated. "Who am I to do this?" he asked, but God reassured him, saying, "I will be with you." With his brother Aaron as his spokesman, Moses returned to Egypt and went straight to Pharaoh. "This is what the Lord says, 'Let my people go.'" But Pharaoh laughed. "Who is this Lord that I should obey him? I will not let Israel go." Pharaoh's stubbornness set the stage for a series of incredible events, 10 plagues that would show God's power and break Pharaoh's will. First, the Nile River turned to blood, making the water undrinkable. Then came swarms of frogs, gnats, and flies, each one causing chaos. Pharaoh promised to let the Israelites go, but changed his mind every time. The plagues grew worse. The death of livestock, painful boils, devastating hailstorms, locusts that devoured the crops, and darkness that covered the land for 3 days. But the final plague was the most devastating, the death of every firstborn in Egypt. God instructed the Israelites to mark their doorframes with the blood of a lamb, so the angel of death would pass over their homes. That night, wailing filled Egypt as Pharaoh finally gave in. "Go! Leave my land!" he shouted. And so the Israelites began their journey to freedom. The Israelites, led by Moses, marched out of Egypt with joy and hope. But soon Pharaoh changed his mind and sent his army to bring them back. Trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea, the people panicked. But Moses told them, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." God instructed Moses to raise his staff over the sea, and the waters parted, creating a dry path for the Israelites to cross. When Pharaoh's army followed, the waters crashed back, sweeping them away. Now free from Egypt, the Israelites began their journey to the Promised Land. Along the way, God provided for them, sending manna from heaven and water from a rock. At Mount Sinai, God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, a set of laws to guide his people and set them apart as his chosen nation. But the journey wasn't easy. The Israelites often doubted and complained, forgetting how God had saved them. Yet God remained faithful, leading them with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. The story of Moses and the Exodus teaches us that no matter how impossible a situation seems, God can make a way. It's a story of faith, obedience, and God's unwavering love for his people. What challenges are you facing today? Remember, just as God led the Israelites to freedom, he can guide you through your struggles too.